Hello, everybody, and welcome to a very exciting episode of Second Take Cinema, coming at you from the glorious Impala Films headquarters in sunny Southend-on-Sea. Today is an episode that's very special because it's our first ever listener request.
Na 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 no.
This episode was requested by listener Tom McCarthy. Tom McCarthy is a close personal friend of the show. He actually appears as a recurring actor in our audio drama, Haunted, audio drama, playing Theo Harper in Season 1 and Season 2 of the show, along with a few other little roles that he fills in for. And he asked us, if you couldn't guess from that glorious rendition of John Williams' score, he asked us to review Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. This is a film from 1999, written and directed by George Lucas, starring Liam Neeson, Ewan McGregor, Natalie Portman, Jake Lloyd, Ahmed Best, Ian McDiarmid, Anthony Daniels, Kenny Baker, Pernilla August, and Frank Oz. It is the first of the so-called prequel trilogy, and was released in 1999, as I said. It was made for a budget of $115 million.
Which sounds small potatoes now, but that was huge at the time.
Yeah, and grossed $1.8 billion.
In 99.
Yeah, I mean, I do think that's adjusted for inflation.
Right.
Because I'm pretty sure the first film to ever hit $1 billion wasn't until, like, The Dark Knight or something like that.
Right.
I could be wrong on that, though. But I think that's for adjusted. Anyway, we all know what Star Wars is. We all know this film. Anyone who lived here, like even I am not a Star Wars fan. And I remember the build-up to this film coming out. Like, there's only been a handful of films in my life that had build-up like this. I think the other two were Avengers Endgame and the last Harry Potter movie. Like, you don't often get to see... I mean, this consumed culture.
Yeah.
I'd never even heard. I was 8. I was 8 years old. I literally didn't know fuck all about Star Wars.
Oh, I knew Star Wars by this point.
And
I'd watched the first 3 on VHS.
See, I hadn't. I'd never seen them. I didn't see a Star Wars. I did not see a single Star Wars movie until I was in my 20s.
Right.
Yeah. It kind of became a bit of a bone of contention with me where I was just deliberately not watching them at a certain point because people just wouldn't stop saying to me,
"You've got to watch Star Wars."
When I went to uni, I had a film professor who told me that you cannot complete a film course without having seen Star Wars or Citizen Kane. So I was like, well, I ain't going to watch either of them then. Now, I have seen Star Wars since then, but you know what? 33 fucking years old, and I've still never seen Citizen Kane. I might wait till I'm on my deathbed to finally watch it, and then when he whispers Rosebud at the end,
That's the word that kills you.
I'll be like, finally, I can die.
Rosebud.
Okay. So this film has an approval rating of 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. The site's critical consensus reads, burdened by exposition and populated with stock characters, The Phantom Menace gets the Star Wars prequels off to a bumpy, albeit visually dazzling start. As of July 2022, the film is the lowest rated live-action film of the Star Wars series, dropping below The Rise of Skywalker. Many aspects of the script and characters were criticised, especially that of Jar Jar Binks, who was regarded by many members of the older fan community as toyetic, a merchandising opportunity rather than a serious character. Ahmed Best has later said that he contemplated suicide after receiving backlash for his portrayal. Fuck, that's not funny.
Yeah, no, the toxicity of the fandom at this point was already well established.
I know
specifically around Jar Jar Binks.
Well, I know they came for Jake Lloyd, because isn't this why he quit acting?
Yeah, they came for a lot of people.
For a child? Well, what is wrong with you nerds?
That's why I said this is a problem with the... I mean, to be fair, you now have this in almost every fan base, but it certainly seemed to come out strongly with the Star Wars fan base first in relation to this film, because as you say, number one, you're going Jar Jar Binks and it's a black actor and that's the one they're attacking, and then they're also attacking a child, and you're like, wow, literally nothing's fucking off limits just because you didn't like a movie that you were like, don't get me wrong, I get it, you were psyched for a film, you really wanted to love it, and then you felt utterly disappointed. And maybe those two characters stood out to you as terrible characters. Don't go and attack the actors.
Yeah.
What the fuck are you doing? They didn't write it.
Yeah. We should be clear off the bat here. And this is going to come as a shock, because we're both fat film lovers. But neither of us are Star Wars fans, are we?
I like Star Wars as a universe, but I'm not into Star Wars, really, no. I was into Star Trek more.
Yeah.
The way that you're much more into Doctor Who.
Yeah.
Star Wars was never really that... The problem with Star Wars for me was that it was never really that much sci-fi. It was more science fantasy.
Yeah.
So it didn't really seem to offer me much.
Yeah.
It was interesting. It was fun. I liked some of the design aesthetics.
Yeah.
There's things I can praise. And don't get me wrong, there are good films in the series, I think, at least in my opinion. But it was never good enough to grab me and go, this is my fandom. This is what I'm going to dedicate my spare time to.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, I'll watch these films when I'm feeling in the mood.
Yeah. Roger Ebert of the Chicago Sun-Times gave it 3.5 stars out of 4 and called it an astonishing achievement in imaginative filmmaking, and said Lucas tells a good story. Ebert also...
Well, he's already wrong.
Ebert also wrote that if some of the characters are less than compelling, perhaps that's inevitable, because it is the opening film in a new trilogy. He concluded his review by saying that rather than Star Trek films, filmmakers could give me transparent underwater cities and vast hollow senatorial spheres any day.
Who was this?
Roger Ebert, not a Star Trek fan then.
Well, obviously not, but I mean, that's fine. He can like or dislike. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, he might just say he prefers fantastical worlds over the more gritty gritty is quote unquote, but the more grounded worlds of Star Trek and I say grounded with a pinch of salt. I understand they're still alien planets. But to say that the beginning of a trilogy doesn't require developed or interesting characters, that sounds like a bad take to me.
It does to me too.
Because at the same, while I agree that you know, obviously these characters you would expect to have, certainly if they survive all three or go through all three in the trilogy, you'd expect them to have a lot more development than you know, all being complete in one movie.
Yeah. They
need to be interesting to start with.
Yeah, of course they do.
That's the problem I have with Avatar, is none of the characters are interesting. Yeah. So that's why I haven't watched the second one.
Owen Gleiberman of Entertainment Weekly gave the film a B grade and complimented Liam Neeson's performance and the action scenes. In an Entertainment Weekly review for the DVD release, Mark Bernardin gave the film a C-, calling it haplessly plotted, horribly written, and juvenile. Real Views' James Berardinelli wrote, looking at the big picture, in spite of all its flaws, The Phantom Menace is still among the best bang for its buck fun that can be had in a movie theatre, and said the film was a distinct improvement over Return of the Jedi.
Oh, interesting.
Andrew Johnson of Time Out New York wrote, let's face it, no film could ever match the expectations some have for Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, which isn't to say it's a disappointment. On the contrary, it's awesomely entertaining, provided you accept it on its own terms. Like the original film, it's a boy's own adventure yarn with a corny but irresistible spiritual subtext. The effects and production design are stunning, but they always serve the story, not the other way around. Empire magazine ranked Phantom Menace on its list of 500 greatest movies of all time, time, whilst Entertainment Weekly and Comcast included the film on their list of worst movie sequels. Technically, it's not a sequel, it's a prequel, but fair enough.
I guess it's a sequel in that it's a film after the first one in release order. But you are right in terms of the actual main timeline.
Well, this is a poor take, in my opinion, but people are entitled to their opinions. William Arnold of the Seattle Post-Intelligencer. That's a weird... Intelligencer. That's a stupid name for a fucking... Post-Intelligencer.
That is a pretentious name.
Imagine calling it Post-Intelligencer. Doesn't that mean post-intelligence? As in dumbass.
That might explain the take.
Yeah. Agreed that the film's massive hype caused many of the negative reactions, saying it built expectations that can't possibly be matched and scuttled the element of storytelling surprise. And this is where we get to the bad take. He also said the film was well made and entertaining and was better than similar box office fare that year, such as The Mummy and The Matrix. I'm going to say it now, Mummy and The Matrix are both better than this movie.
Yes, 100%.
The Mummy, the Brendan Fraser Mummy, and The Matrix, the first Matrix, fair enough the sequels were garbage, are both better than The Phantom Menace.
By miles, my friend.
Yeah.
Also, prior to this, in the end of 98, 13th Floor was better than this.
Yeah.
And that's a sci-fi epic. And you know what? The 13th Floor and The Matrix are based on the same story.
Yeah.
But the 13th Floor came out first and actually is a slightly more intelligent take on it, whereas The Matrix is a more stylish take on it.
Yeah.
But,
the introduction of midichlorians, microscopic organisms that mediate using the Force, was being regarded as controversial. Some view it as a concept that negates the Force's spiritual quality. Film historian Daniel Danello says, anathema to Star Wars fanatics who thought they reduced the Force to a kind of viral infection. Midichlorians provide a biological interface, the link between physical bodies and spiritual energy. There's been some controversy over whether several alien characters reflect racial stereotypes.
Oh, Christ, we noticed that.
Yeah. For example, the oafish, slow-witted Jar Jar Binks has long, droopy ears reminiscent of dreadlocks and spoke with what many perceived as a Caribbean patois reminiscent of Jamaican Creole. Drew Grant described the character as servile and cowardly, a black minstrelish stereotype on par with Stepin Fetchit. Bloody hell. I've heard this before. Georgetown University Professor of African American Studies, Michael Eric Dyson, says that the entire Gungan species seems suggestive of a primitive African tribe, with Boss Nass, I think. Boss Nass, portrayed as a fat, bumbling caricature of a stereotypical African tribal chieftain. The greedy and corrupt Nemoidians of the Trade Federation have been noted as resembling East Asian stereotypes, and the unprincipled trader Watto has been interpreted as a Jewish stereotype reminiscent of Charles Dickens's character Fagin.
It's not a good look for George that...
No.
It's not a good look for George because 3 of the races on there do not only just resemble physically the archetypes or racial stereotypes of 3 different races, he then gives them accents to match.
Yeah.
It's hard to then sit there and go, you know what, people are looking too far into it.
I'll have a look in a minute, see if I can see who voiced the Nemoidians.
Yeah.
George Lucas has denied all of these implications, instead criticising the American media for using opinions from the internet as a reliable source of news information.
Well,
Lucas added that it reflects more the racism of the commentators than it does the movie. However, animator Rob Coleman said ahead of the film's release that Watto's mannerisms had indeed been inspired by footage of Alec Guinness playing Fagin in Oliver Twist.
Well, that says it all then, doesn't it, really?
Let's see if it says
that may not be George Lucas's choice, maybe. Maybe that's the animator's choice, but you're telling me that George Lucas didn't have that on lockdown by his own choice?
Yeah.
He was hands-off on the alien designs. Doesn't sound right to me.
So, we're going to get right into it in a minute. But first, it's time to quiz Rory. Okay, Rory, you've got a very simple task today. There are currently 11 Star Wars movies.
Yes.
The prequel trilogy, the original trilogy, the sequel trilogy, Rogue One, and Solo. I want you to put those films in order of least to highest grossing. So which do you think is the lowest
Are these
grossing
adjusted for
Star
inflation?
Wars? I don't remember.
That helps. All right. So, but let's just say which ones came out with the biggest bucks.
Yes.
Okay.
Do you want me to give you the figure that they made before you guess?
Yeah, go on. So
the lowest grossing Star Wars movie
Yep.
made $475 million.
Jesus, imagine that being your weakest.
Yeah, but put it this way, every film after this one is in the billion range. This really is a powerhouse franchise.
Yeah.
I don't like it, but fuck me.
I'm going to go with Solo because literally there was more films planned after it and they didn't do any more, which I can assume is because of burnout from Solo.
And you are correct. Solo is the lowest grossing Star Wars
Wunderbar.
movie. At only $475 million. It was considered a failure by Disney.
Jesus Christ, man.
Up next, in 10th place, this film made $1.1 billion.
$1.1 billion.
And yes, this must be adjusted for inflation.
Let's go with the first Star Wars movie, New Hope.
That is incorrect.
Oh, nuts.
Next one made $1.2 billion.
Rogue One?
I'm afraid not. Next one made $1.3 billion.
Star Wars A New Hope.
Afraid not. I did say that I thought you'd find these surprising, actually.
Yeah.
7 made $1.3 billion.
Number 5?
Afraid not. $1.4 billion.
Number 5?
Close, but no cigar. You were one away. $1.6 billion.
Number 5.
This one's quite a controversial one in the franchise.
Rise of Skywalker?
No. I suppose that didn't help, because I think a lot of the later ones have been controversial.
Pretty much. Well, let's be honest, Phantom Menace was fucking...
$1.8 billion.
Phantom Menace.
That is the Phantom Menace. Gonna say, I'm glad you got that one, because we said it earlier.
Yeah.
Okay, we're in the top 3 now.
Okay.
So what do you think is the third highest grossing at $1.9 billion?
Last Jedi.
No. Second highest grossing with a whopping $2.6 billion.
Last Jedi.
No. Last one. The highest grossing Star Wars movie. Are you ready for this figure?
Yeah, go on.
The highest grossing Star Wars movie, adjusted for inflation, made $3.8 billion.
Last Jedi.
No. Would you like to know the order?
Yeah, go on.
So you got 2 right, well done.
Hey!
In 11th place, Solo, a Star Wars story, made $475 million. In 10th place, Episode 2, Attack of the Clones, made $1.1 billion. Obviously, a lot because of the backlash to Phantom Menace, people obviously took a bit of a dip for Attack of the Clones.
Interesting.
Next, in 9th place, is Episode 9, The Rise of Skywalker, which made $1.2 billion. Again, clearly knocked back from Return of the Jedi being... Not Return of the Jedi. Last Jedi being a disappointment.
Yeah.
In 8th place, it's Rogue One with $1.3 billion.
Right.
In 7th place, also with $1.3 billion, but it was like slightly over, is Episode 3, Revenge of the Sith.
Yeah.
Number 6 is Episode 6, Return of the Jedi, with $1.4 billion. In 5th place is Episode 8, The Last Jedi, with $1.6 billion. In 4th place, Episode 1, The Phantom Menace, with $1.8 billion. In 3rd place, the top 3...
I can't believe this was 4th.
I know. Well, remember the hype for it.
Yeah, it's true.
The hype was insane.
Yeah, it had its own hype train going on its own track.
In 3rd place... Episode 5, The Empire Strikes Back,
right,
made $1.9 billion. In 2nd place, another one that had a massive hype train. Episode 7, The Force Awakens, $2.6 billion.
Right.
Meaning that the still, to this day, highest grossing Star Wars movie, when adjusted for inflation, is Episode 4, A New Hope,
Jesus.
a.k.a. the original Star Wars,
Fuck.
which made $3.8 billion.
Wow.
All those figures were taken from Screen Rant, so if there are any mistakes, go and blame Screen Rant. Don't come knocking at my door. Go blame the fine folks at ScreenRant.com.
So can we do the quiz now so I can
No.
give you the order?
That was a 2 out of 10.
It's not fair.
That may have been too challenging of a one, but I thought it was a fun one to do.
Bastard.
Given that it's like I think it's the 3rd highest grossing franchise in the world, or 4th. Anywho, Star Wars time.
Yes.
So this was requested by listener Tom. I had seen this movie before, though. I have seen Phantom Menace before.
Yep.
And I remember thinking it was shit. And I watched it this time. And wanted to put a spoon into my eye socket and scoop my eyeball out and blend it
So you really liked
in a
it?
blender. This is, I don't want to be mean, but this is one of the worst movies I've ever seen. And I've seen some real shit.
Yeah.
I want to be very clear here, I'm not a Star Wars fan. So I was never going to love this film. But there are a couple of the Star Wars films I do like. Empire Strikes Back's a great movie.
Yeah.
Rogue One, I really liked Rogue One.
Haven't seen Rogue One, actually. It's one of the ones I haven't
It's got a weak start. It's a weak start, Rogue One is. And then I'd say it takes about 20 minutes before it finds its feet. But once they actually get on the mission that they're going on, it's a pretty good film.
Cool.
And it's one of the best shows of Darth Vader you've ever seen.
Nice.
Like, finally filming him the way he should be filmed, which is as a horror villain.
Right.
Yeah. Oh, there's a really good creepy scene with Darth Vader in it. But this just ain't it for me, dog. I hate this so much. How about you? You've seen it before, I assume?
I saw this when it came out in cinemas, my friend.
Did you see it in the cinema?
I saw it in the cinema.
You're
Went
one
with
of the,
my
you're
whole
one of the
family.
You're one of the 1.8 billion.
Yeah. I am indeed.
Loser. How much were cinema tickets back then? Like £3?
I don't know. When did this come out?
99. Were we still
I
on
was
shillings?
13. My parents bought the ticket.
Were we still on shillings back then?
We were, yes. And penny farthings were
Yeah.
still the main mode of transportation. But yeah, no, I'd watched the original trilogy on VHS as a kid, 13 years old when the film came out. My parents and my family, me and my brother and my mum and dad went and watched it at the cinema.
Are they Star Wars fans then, or
No, well, yes, insofar as they enjoy Star Wars.
casual fans?
Yeah.
They're not nerds.
No. Well, they've got other things they're more nerdy about. Star
They're not
Wars is
Star Wars nerds.
Yeah, we don't have any Star Wars paraphernalia.
Has
in
there ever been a Han shot first argument in your house?
no one cares.
Yeah.
See,
Nobody cares.
to be fair, I do care. I actually think they ruined it by trying to make
Greedo
shoot first. But I don't care enough that I'm going to kick off about it.
Yeah.
It's like, fine, my headcanon is the original is the correct one.
Yeah.
But if someone prefers that someone else, who gives a fuck? I don't care enough that I'm going to moan off about Star Wars that much. That being said, I went and watched it at the cinema. I remember thoroughly enjoying it as a 13-year-old. Something that I think this film does do very successfully, which is hard to gauge as you get older, is it does grab the imagination and the enthusiasm of children. George Lucas has always imagined this franchise as a children's franchise. And to be fair, it's the one thing he does know how to do and deliver on. Unfortunately, some of the deeper stuff, like the political machinations and things like that, you don't really notice them as a kid. It's just like, oh, look, they're going on the pod race, big shiny pod race. It's the more adult stuff that older fans would enjoy that is dragged through the mud and doesn't really stick the landing, which means that this film doesn't really have much meat and substance to it.
Yeah.
I'd remember this is one of two films that I went and saw with my family at the cinema. when I exited the cinema, we were all raving about how great it was. And then very shortly over the course of a week, we realised that we hadn't enjoyed it quite as much as we thought we had, in a weird way. Not because we talked to people either. It's just one of those things where it's got such a great initial bang that you enjoy it immediately after seeing it on a big screen, and then it just sort of fades. The other one was Matrix Revolutions, the third one.
Right.
Remember,
you don't pick good films, do you, as a family?
We saw a lot of good films. Those were 2 bad ones. But Matrix Revolutions, we also did a similar thing where we watched it, came out going, that was a brilliant film. And then over the course of the next week, we're just sitting there going, actually, that was crap. Crap.
I've spoken about this before, either on... I can't remember if it was on Second Take Cinema or if it was on VGMP. But there is a certain leeway that seeing a film at the cinema lends to a film.
Yeah, there's a presence to it.
They automatically seem better.
They become an event.
Yeah.
And that makes them immediately better.
Yeah.
Which is weird, because obviously the content of the film is no better. And it's like, not at the moment, but when I get my own flat again, I'm going to have a big surround sound. And I'm going to get a big TV again.
Yeah.
So... essentially, what you get at the cinema, the big screen, big surround sound, I'll have.
Yeah.
So, I'm not really going to be missing out by not seeing it at the cinema.
Yeah.
But again, it's the event of going.
Yeah.
That gives it that extra gravitas.
Yeah, gravitas.
You don't get that at home.
No.
Regardless of how much of the cinema experience, quote unquote, you actually have in the home.
So, let's start. I want to start with the look of this film. Because it's difficult for me to put myself back in... It's difficult for me to put myself back into 1999, but I can think of films that I saw at the same... I can think of films that came out at that same time. That guy actually gave us 2 good examples, Matrix and The Mummy.
Yeah. Big blockbuster extravaganzas.
For me personally, and this might be a bad take... This film is so ugly looking. Like, compared to The Matrix and The Mummy, this is so... A lot of it, not all of it, but 90% of it, is so painfully, obviously shot on a green screen.
Yeah. And it's not that the green screening is badly done, necessarily. There are a few shots where it shows up, but for the most part, like, the edges aren't... fizzy or doesn't have like the usual leanings or trappings of green screening. It's that the cinematography, the lighting, the position of characters, the lack of camera motion is clearly all done to support the green screening.
Yes, there's a lot of very just head-on shots.
Yeah,
like 2 shots where the characters don't move and they're just standing there, and essentially you might as well be doing rear projection.
Yeah. Actually, rear projection would have given them a bit more...
better, yes.
Because they'd have much more freedom with the camera.
Yeah.
I think that is the big issue with this film, visually, is while the CGI was phenomenal for its time, and the green screening, in terms of the actual quality of the, cookie cutting around the people, was great for its time, the fact that they restricted their artistic... integrity, really, if I'm being honest. Yeah. Just to fit around it, made it feel bad.
Yeah.
I remember there was a few scenes which looked better than others, and there was some of the trivia, they stated that several of the sets, they would build the actual set, but only as high as the actors were, which meant, and it said on there, which I thought was really shitty, it was like, Liam Neeson's height cost the production team £150,000 more or dollars more than they expected because they had to build extra set to accommodate his height.
Oh, is he quite tall, Liam Neeson?
Apparently so. But at the same time, I'm like, well, fuck you. A, his height, he can't help. And B, you should have been building the sets anyway.
Yeah.
Like I know that's the production team will only do what they're told by the director and the production staff. And clearly George Lucas was obsessed with CGIing everything. So it's not the production team's fault per se. But at the same time, like, don't blame Liam Neeson's height for the fact that you've been told to half-ass your job.
Yeah. And
you can't half-ass it as much as you wanted to because he's too tall.
Yeah.
Bollocks to that. Like, this, honestly, I said this about loads of even more recent films as well, certainly. Things like the Marvel films that I don't really give a shit about. Stop CGIing everything. Like, it's... If an actor can actually be somewhere and it can feel somewhat lived in, that's so much cooler, and you'd have to do less work on the... Here's the thing, is it may seem at first, it's like, well, that's so much more effort because you've got to build these sets and you've got to design the actual sets, whereas if you just green screen it, you can do it all in post. It's like, do you know how much extra that costs on the post-production side? Trust me, CGI ain't that cheap.
No.
Like, certainly to get it done in the time frame you need, whereas if you film an actual fucking set... It's quicker to actually erect a set than it is to build it all in CGI in post. And B, you don't have to do any extra work in post-production. You can just edit the film together in the highest resolution possible at no extra cost.
Yeah.
But if you're CGIing 4K backgrounds, 8K backgrounds, 75mm sized backgrounds on every single shot... And this also, on the trivia for this, apparently even basic talking head shots in this film often had about 4 to 5 layers of CGI imposed on it. Because they wanted to animate little things going on in the background all the time, or they'd, it'd be at a point where they'd had to cut off the background, so they had to CGI the background over the top of the actors, etc. And it's like, that's... How much extra effort did you have to put in?
Yeah.
And in order to accommodate that, you made the shots boring and the lighting crap.
Yeah.
What was the benefit? What did you get out of doing this other than wasting money?
Well, $1.8 billion to be fair. But yeah.
How much more you could have made if you'd saved that money by constructing actual sets?
I just think... So the basic plot here, if I followed it correctly, is Senator Palpatine, who obviously goes on to become the Emperor, is basically playing politics to try and create a system that will force the council to create a galactic republic. To suspend the galactic republic.
Yeah, he wants them to give him controlling power so he can basically do a Hitler.
Yeah, basically he's doing a Caesar, isn't he? Where they gave Caesar emergency powers and Caesar never gave them back.
Yeah, I think that's what he's trying to do. So he creates a situation on Naboo where Naboo is under attack, thinking that they will fold and it will cause the Galactic Senate to give him emergency powers.
Yeah. And Naboo's ruled by Queen Amidala, isn't it?
That's right. Queen Amidala instead.
Portman.
That's right, yeah. Queen Amidala doesn't roll over. Instead, she goes, she fights for her planet's freedom and she goes to him. Thankfully, luckily for him, she goes to him for support. So instead of her rolling over, he goes, actually, what I'll do is if I support her, but she pushes me in to support her, she'll look like a lost cause, but people will feel for her, put me in power, and then I can do my takeover anyway.
And he doesn't look like he's snatched power. He looks like it's been thrust upon him.
Yeah, and he can, he can feign the whole, oh, well, if I must.
Yeah. Yeah, if it's my duty, I'll do it. Bless you. Thank you. Meanwhile, so you start with... See, I'm not going to lie. I've seen this film about 3 times now, and it's so boring, I still can't remember half of what happens in it.
Well, some of it doesn't make sense to me still.
Yeah, you start with Qui-Gon Jinn, which is Liam Neeson, and Obi-Wan Kenobi, which is Ewan McGregor. And they go... You actually start with them going to see the what was it? Nidalons? Nidamorns? Nemorians?
Japanese people.
Nemoidians, that was it.
Nemoidians.
I remember thinking it sounded like Leonard Nimoy.
Yeah. Maybe it's named after that. Who knows?
Maybe. So they go to see the Nemoidians, and the Nemoidians try and kill them, don't they?
Yes.
And is that why they end up on Tatooine?
Yeah, so they get attacked by the Nemoidians, so they have to escape. They go to Naboo to warn Queen Amidala, who has already been arrested by the Nemoidians.
Yeah, and is that when they meet Jar Jar?
That's when they meet Jar Jar. They go to the underwater place, get sent through.
Gungan.
It's, pointless fucking... Just to set up what happens at the end, really. They find Queen Amidala, help her get to an escape ship, and then the ship gets damaged, exiting Naboo. So in order to repair it, they need to land somewhere, and the closest place they can land that's not in Republic territory is Tatooine. How
convenient for them.
Yeah, so they go to Tatooine, and...
This is where Jesus is born.
Yes, they find Jesus.
AKA Anakin Skywalker.
Yep.
Right, let's just talk about this for a minute.
Yeah.
How fucking bollocks is the Immaculate Conception thing?
I hate the Immaculate Conception storyline.
He doesn't have
a
father.
Yeah.
The Force gave birth to him. Fuck off.
Yep.
Like, honestly, fuck off. And what metaphor are you even setting up here?
Because he's not the saviour in the end, is
No,
he?
he becomes the villain. Is that the point?
So it's like, yeah, I don't know. Because it's like, yeah, the Jesus allegory, surely Jesus isn't Darth Vader.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure the Jesus allegory ends at Order 66.
Yeah.
When he starts killing all the children in Revenge of the Sith. Jesus Christ, it's called Order 66, isn't it?
I think it is,
yeah. See, I think my nerd parlance... Oh, let's be honest, they're already gathering outside the office with pitchforks and torches for insulting their precious film. So, yeah, we meet Anakin Skywalker, played by Jake Lloyd, who did not deserve all the abuse he got for this film.
No.
He's built C-3PO?
Yeah, that was an unnecessary addition.
Yeah.
Like, having R2-D2 and C-3PO in this didn't need to be there.
No.
But R2-D2 at least makes sense in the way that he's introduced. C-3PO being built by Skywalker, abandoned naked on the planet, and then somehow manages to get off the planet with gold armor and be an actual legitimate service droid, despite the fact he was built by an 8-year-old boy on a sand planet, doesn't make a lot of sense.
So what we basically learn is that the Skywalker family and a lot of other people on Tatooine are enslaved to a guy named Watto.
Yes.
Who is...
Well, they find out that there's slavery on this planet.
Yeah.
Because it's owned by the Jabbas, isn't it? The Hutts.
Is it?
Yeah.
Honestly, we're throwing a lot of googly words at me right now.
Jabba the Hutt. You must know Jabba the Hutt.
Right, yeah, I know Jabba the Hutt.
Yeah, so the Hutt's family, it's owned by the Hutts.
Right, okay. And what's the Javas?
The Jawas are the little...
The little sand gnomes?
Yeah.
Right, they have a name. Okay, I was just calling them the little sand gnomes.
No, they're Jawas.
Jawas.
Yeah.
Would you like a fresh cup of Jawa?
Yeah, baby.
Anyway... Watto is some weird flying bird man, and he's enslaved them, and Qui-Gon Jinn is like, yo, I bet you that if this kid can win a pod race, you have to set them free. And the guy's like, no, that's not a fair trade. I'll only set one of them free. So Qui-Gon Jinn, hero that he is, he's like, all right, fuck the mum. I'll just take the boy. Oh, really, Qui-Gon, Mr. Hero Man?
Yeah.
Mr. Oscar Schindler.
Yeah, the
Mr. whatever your character's name in Taken is.
The Jedi.
You got a special set of skills, have you?
Well, he's a Jedi. Why doesn't he just take the mum anyway?
Mate, I honestly didn't know.
It's such a bullshit. No, I must stay because it's your journey, Anakin, to get off this planet. Blah blah. So I understand the mother giving up her freedom for her son. Yeah. That makes sense. It makes no sense that fucking Qui-Gon is like, yeah, no, fuck you, mum.
Yeah,
you just stay.
I'm not gonna lie. The whole film, the only part of this film that feels like it needed to be in it is the last act.
Yep.
The first two acts feel unnecessary. In my opinion...
We also don't get a very good introduction to any of these characters. We're just kind of thrust into the middle of a story that's already begun. Bear in mind, this film is nearly 2 hours long, and it's over long.
Yeah.
But we don't get a decent first act that establishes anything.
In my personal opinion, the prequel trilogy did not need to start with Anakin as a child.
No.
We did just go straight to Hayden Christensen. Like, pick up with him as a teen.
Yeah.
We don't need this film. I've seen the whole prequel trilogy. This whole film, near enough, is unnecessary.
Yeah.
So we should point out the reason Qui-Gon Jinn is interested in Anakin is, 1, the Immaculate Conception, and 2, he can sense the Force in him, and he does a blood test on him where we get the wonderful piece of dialogue. And don't get me wrong, Ewan McGregor grew into this role. Yeah. He's not great as Obi-Wan in this first film. I checked the boy's blood for midichlorians. He's got however many it is. Why, that's even more than Master Yoda.
Yeah.
Fuck off.
Yeah.
Oh my god, the magic boy is magic. Oh my god, he's born from the Force.
And he's so magic, he's more magic than the little green goblin man.
Yeah. Like, oh my god.
Who is super magic goblin man.
Yeah. So anyway, we get to the pod race, which is the first real big action set piece of this movie.
Yep.
One of two really big action set pieces. I remember a lot of marketing being based around this.
Yeah.
I think there was a tie-in video game based on this. I think there was like Lego sets based on this, I think. And this is Anakin versus a bunch of nameless Gleeklops. And one particular one. What's the one particular one's name? Who's a cheating scumbag?
Oh, Sebulba.
Remembered it at the same time.
Yeah. Well, because he's in episode 1 Pod Racer.
And if he wins...
And he's the only one with a weapon in Pod Racer because he's got the side vents thing.
Oh, okay.
And that actually, you can use that in the game.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, if you use the taunt in the game, it opens up the side vents so you can kill other players.
Oh, okay. So if Anakin wins, Watto has to set him free. The race happens. I don't really care about this sequence, but I think you quite like this sequence, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is, this sequence is fantastic as a sequence, but it's unnecessary to the film's story.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest problem, is that George Lucas genuinely came up with a phenomenal action sequence that really works, I think. Really has pathos in it. Really, you do feel kind of on the edge of your seat. It is exciting, but it would be more exciting and it would feel so much more earned if the story really required it.
Yeah.
If it felt like it was actually going anywhere. Because essentially, number one, they take the boy away and the pod races are never mentioned again in the whole series of Star Wars. So
Thank
the pod
God.
races themselves are but the pod races themselves are obviously irrelevant to the grander storyline. But as you say, this part of the Anakin story doesn't need to be told.
Yeah.
Doesn't really lead to anything that's related to Darth Vader.
No.
And it just feels like we're... bear in mind, again, because we've had a lackluster act, or lack of Act 1, we've just basically gone to Act 2... Jedis have arrived, and they're now under attack, and now we've got to run away with the Queen, and now we've got to Tatooine, and now there is boy.
Yeah.
You know, it doesn't feel like we really have earned anything from this action sequence.
Yeah.
So yeah, great action sequence, just meaningless.
So Anakin says a tearful goodbye to his mum, and then I do believe this is where Darth Maul first turns up.
Yes.
He nearly runs Qui-Gon Jinn over on his weird hover scooter thing.
Yes. Hover scooter.
It's a weird hover
Make
scooter.
him sound
thing,
like he's
isn't
a pizza delivery boy.
It fucking looks like one.
Meep, meep. He does nowadays, yeah, they got the hoodie thing on. It's
So Darth Maul was the other big thing in this film. Lots of marketing based around Darth Maul.
It's because he had a cool design.
Because it's a very striking look.
Yeah.
Played by Ray Park and voiced by Peter Serafinovich.
Yep. Who are both great.
Who are both great. Truthfully, one of the best parts of the film, Darth Maul.
Yeah.
Sadly,
most
not really in it
intriguing.
much. Don't know fuck all about him.
Yeah. Again, no setup for him.
Not a character, really.
No.
Just a bodyguard for the fucking Emperor, really.
Also, it makes no sense what he's doing in this film. Like, because Palpatine sends Maul to try and kill Amidala and everyone else.
Qui-Gon and
yeah,
that lot,
on Tatooine. But there's actually no reason for Palpatine to want to kill them at this point, as far as I'm aware. I don't know why he'd want to.
Is it just because...
Is it just to support the Republic, maybe?
Is it literally just he doesn't want Jedis meddling? But surely killing them draws more attention, because at the minute he's still trying to work in the shadows, isn't he?
Yeah, this
Doesn't
is what I mean.
killing 2 Jedi draw more attention to him?
Maybe, but also, I'm not sure he's aware at this point that Amidala has Jedis with her. Like, because the Jedis disappeared, didn't they, on the alien ship at the beginning, and then on future communications with Palpatine, one of them asks the main one, goes, "Why didn't you tell him about the Jedi?" "Why would I? As far as unless something turns up, there's no reason for him to know they're still alive."
True.
So Palpatine doesn't know the Jedi is still alive.
That's true.
So this is a part of a story which makes zero sense.
Yeah.
He sent Darth Maul, but if Darth Maul does find Amidala and kill her on Tatooine, that's done nothing to help Palpatine's plan, because he still can't get her to sign over anything on Naboo. and she's not yet reached the Senate for him to play her like a fiddle the way he does. Yeah. So it makes no sense, essentially. And then again, it makes no sense towards the end when Amidala is trying to take Naboo back with Palpatine's support, and then he sends Darth Maul to attack Qui-Gon Jinn and Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And you're like, but why? Like, Darth Maul has this needless fight and dies at the end for nothing.
Yeah.
His character does nothing of value.
No.
And it's such a waste. Because the character was so cool.
Yeah.
And his introduction was cool. And his double lightsaber was cool. And yet, his character means nothing.
Yeah. So, they eventually end up, unless I'm skipping a huge chunk, they end up at the Jedi Council.
Yes.
Where Qui-Gon Jinn says to the Jedi Council, which includes Master Yoda, a bunch of Gleep Glops, and Samuel L. Jackson.
Yeah, Mace Windu.
As Mace Windu.
He's a window cleaner.
My God, how young does Sam Jackson look in this film?
Mate.
I always think of Sam Jackson as one of those actors who isn't aging.
But he has.
And then you watch this and you're like, oh, he has.
Yes,
he still looks very good for his age.
Oh, yeah. No, Samuel Jackson looks the nuts, but at the same time, you are right.
You watch this and you're like, fuck, he looks young as fuck.
Yeah, so it's Baby Boy Jackson.
Yeah. We're not going to reiterate the purple lightsaber story, are we? I mean, that's part of pop culture now. I think everyone knows it.
If you want to look up the purple lightsaber story, just go online, guys. You can find it. It's kind of cool, but...
The story is basically Sam Jackson said, hey, George, I want a purple lightsaber. George went, lightsabers only come in blue, green, and red. And he went, but I want a purple one, and I'm Samuel L. fucking Jackson. And George Lucas went, you are Samuel L. fucking Jackson. Here you go, purple lightsaber.
Also, I like some of the fan theories that came out about the purple lightsaber because of that, which was that it's a bastardization of red and blue, which means that Mace Windu may actually be potentially half Sith.
Right.
Right. There's the idea that Mace Windu could turn villainous at any time, which would have been cool. Not in any of the films.
No.
Not in any of the films at all. It's just fans' headcanon.
Yeah.
Which is a cool headcanon. But it means nothing because it doesn't account to anything.
So they basically... Qui-Gon Jinn says, I want to train Anakin as an apprentice. Yoda's like, well, no, he's too old. We usually start training them from birth. Also, you've already got an apprentice, Obi-Wan. Qui-Gon Jinn's like, I can't teach Obi-Wan anything else. Obi-Wan's great as he is, even though we've seen Obi-Wan do exactly nothing in this movie.
Yeah, because he doesn't even go... When they land on Tatooine, he just stays in the vehicle, in the ship... and does nothing for that part of the adventure. Yeah. He just sits there and then talks to Qui-Gon and tests the blood.
Yeah.
That's it. By the way, did you know that Qui-Gon's communicator in the Tatooine...
Qui-Gon?
Yeah, whatever. Who cares? He's not a real person. Qui-Gon's communicator on Tatooine is actually a Philips lady shaver. They removed the top.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Wonderful. I love that. And then there's some weird prophecy bullshit about, a child who will bring balance to the Force or something like that.
They think he's the one who'll bring balance, which is...
But then why wouldn't you want to train him?
Well, here's the thing as well. Do they not understand that, or maybe they should have argued this a little bit, technically they're not wrong. He is the one who brings balance. Because at this point in the Force, there is a whole Jedi Council running everything. And there is, at most, maybe two Siths, which is... And one of them is Maul, who is decapitated he's split in half by the end of the film. So it's Palpatine, really. Yeah. And it's like, well, Darth Vader kills all the Jedi. So eliminates it back down so you end up with, just two Jedi and two Sith. So he does bring balance to the Force.
Well, there wasn't... The whole point is that he actually does bring balance to the Force until the Disney sequel trilogy came along.
Yeah.
He did bring balance to the Force because he's actually the one who kills the Emperor in Return of the Jedi, isn't he?
But he brings balance to the Force because he kills all the Jedi. Like, if you're the side who is already won, the Jedi have won.
Yeah.
At this point, because they have the Jedi Council and the Siths are nobodies.
Yeah, they actually think there are no Siths anymore, don't
that's why when they hear about Darth Maul, they're like, is it a Sith? Well, that can't be. They've been dead for hundreds of years, blah, blah, blah. So, well, if you hear that there's a boy who can bring balance to the Force and you've won, maybe don't activate that little balancing pill because you're the thing getting rebalanced.
Yeah.
So stupid.
Yeah, none of this means anything, and I'm sorry for all the Star Wars fans who might be listening, but I could not care less about any of this garbage.
Yeah, it's all political machinations that aren't really anywhere near as clever as George Lucas seemed to think they were.
I just don't. I mean, I know this is just me, and I know lots of people disagree, and that's fine. That's totally fine to disagree. There's stuff I like that's dumb. I love Army of Darkness. I think it's one of the greatest films ever made. I totally know that that's just me. That's just me that thinks that. Most people don't. I hate the actual design of the Star Wars universe.
Oh, really?
I hate it. I hate that.
When you say design, what are you talking about?
The arts, the style of the thing. I hate the way droids look in this. Hate them. They're the stupidest looking robots in all of science fiction. And this is coming from a man who likes Doctor Who.
You know, there's a lot of different types of droids.
They all look stupid. Somehow George Lucas made every robot look stupid. Right. The fighting droids look stupid in the third act of this. General Grievous looks stupid in the next one.
Yeah.
C-3PO looks awful. He literally looks like Robot Sheldon. R2-D2 is a shit Dalek.
He's a dustbin.
Yeah. It's just... And the heroes are wearing pyjamas. I know, they're robes, they're monk robes, they're meant to look like monks. No, they look like they're wearing their dressing gowns.
Well, they just come out of the shower.
Lightsabers are cool.
Lightsabers are cool.
Lightsabers are very cool. There's a reason they're iconic. They're very cool. Some of the villains look very cool. Darth Maul, Darth Vader. Darth Vader's an iconic design.
Yeah.
Everything else looks dumb as dishwater, in my opinion.
I think Yoda's quite an iconic design as well.
Yeah, I'll give you Yoda. Yoda's cool.
True,
there must be.
True, there must be.
Until they sold him out to do Virgin commercials, and then it was like, well...
To be fair, we don't know he's not a virgin.
Hey. Well, who's Baby Yoda's dad?
I don't think that...
No, that's a different part of his species, isn't it, Baby Yoda?
I think so. Grogu.
Yeah. Grogu.
Grogu's the
Is it? No, I'm asking you, is it Grogu? I just know it's Baby Yoda.
Yeah, his name's Grogu.
Oh, I thought his name was Baby Yoda.
It was for a while, and then they named him
Baby Yoda, do, Baby Yoda, do.
Oh, don't do that. You could actually get taken off for imitating that song, apparently. They're highly litigious, the Baby Shark people.
No!
Honestly, I don't know why, but they are hyper litigious.
Everybody, all together now. Baby shark, do, baby shark, do.
We're gonna get taken down.
Baby shark. Jesus Christ, come at me, bro.
They will, and they've got money because they made Baby Shark.
Oh, fine, we'll cut this bit then. They can bring balance to my fucking wallet.
The last bit, the only other bit of this film that's kind of enjoyable.
I'm building to the good bit.
Okay.
Because I'm building all the hatred for me. So I can then give them the good bit.
Right.
But yeah, no, I want to be clear. We are going to do at some point the rest of the Star Wars films. There are films in this franchise that I do like.
Yeah.
It does get better from here. Phantom Menace is a low point. Thing is, I feel bad about Phantom Menace, and I didn't have the hype. Imagine how people... Well, have you seen Spaced?
Oh, the TV show. Yeah.
Spaced. How Simon Pegg's character in that feels about Phantom Menace.
Yeah.
Where he literally won't even talk about it and he's heartbroken. I imagine that's how a lot of older Star Wars fans felt when Phantom Menace came out.
I think the main problem is that they didn't feel like they couldn't talk about it. They went and attacked the actors.
Oh yeah, that's definitely a problem.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is, as much as I hate it, I think there's people who hate it more.
Oh yeah. Yeah, undoubtedly.
Let's get to the good part of this film. Well,
it ends.
Unfortunately, a bad part and a good part happen at the same time.
Yeah.
So the bad part is the Gungans come back, and we get Gungans fighting an army of droids. Where did the droids come from, by the way? Do they work for the Nemoidians? They do, don't they?
Yeah, they do. These are they're terrible droid designs, though.
They look like wind would blow them over.
Yeah,
they're so spindly.
Yeah, I also don't understand. They had the Jedi were being basically fought off by just two robots, which were the ones that spun round, had shields and guns attached to their arms. those, like, right at the beginning, those, like, rolling droids that spin around like Sonic the Hedgehog, those are brilliant. Yeah. Great design, and clearly very effective. Yeah. Yet, when they decide to invade Naboo, they send these tin pot fucking droids.
With radio antennas.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, you can build a fucking Death Star, but you're still running your droids.
Death Star's not yet.
No, I know. It's not that far off. Your technology's good enough that you've got spaceships that are going at warp speed.
Yeah.
And yet all your droids are still running on analog radio signals?
Yeah. Yeah. And, like, but these are terrible droid designs, and they're played for comedy. They're like, oh, Roger, Roger. And you're like, well, hang on, why don't you send an army of the good robots?
Yeah. I don't care at all about this Gungan part.
No.
Because it's a lot of just bad comedy from Jar Jar Binks as
it's awful.
Where he's like, he falls off a horse at one point, nearly gets run over.
Yeah.
But the good bit is happening up in the building, where we get a lightsaber fight between Qui-Gon Jinn and kind of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Maul. Now, there's two things that make this scene awesome. One is, I will admit, one of the finest pieces of music in cinema.
Yes.
Duel of the Fates, I believe it's called, by John Williams.
Yeah, fantastic.
Phenomenal piece of music.
Yeah.
Absolutely great. Exactly what you want in a film like this. Feels very energetic. Feels very climactic, very serious.
Which is why it's a shame it's wasted on a nothing burger fight, really.
Yeah, this is the problem here, is I don't know enough about Darth Maul to care about any of this.
Yeah, this should have been a fight either at the end of film 2 or the finale fight at the end of the third one. Like,
I'm
should have
built it being the end of the first one, but if the first one had started with him as a teen, and we could have skipped all the pod racing garbage and have time to introduce Darth Maul and get to know him and, like, who he is, what he's about.
And why he's so dangerous, because all we've seen him do is fail.
Yeah, I know.
This whole film, all he's done is fail, and then it's at the end, it's like, and you're going to fight Darth Maul. And you're like, he's failed 3 times. That's all I've seen.
This will be easy. I quite like this fight, because, as I said, I have seen the other prequels. In the second one, the lightsaber fights start getting stupid.
Yeah.
With people flipping around everywhere.
Lots of backflips, front flips.
There's one between Yoda and Count Dooku in the second one.
Yeah, Christopher Lee, unfortunately, having to fight with a fucking puppet.
Yeah, like, fair play, Christopher Lee. Like, fucking hell. The dude's, like, I think already in his 80s by the time he did Star Wars. And he's having to try and fight with a fucking CGI puppet that's not there. This fight is impressive, but it's believably impressive. Yeah. Like, Ray Park is actually doing the stuff that Maul's doing.
Yeah.
Liam Neeson's stunt double is actually doing the things that Qui-Gon Jinn is doing.
Yeah. Yep. It's a very... honestly, this is a phenomenal fight. And it's... I feel so bad because, a bit like the pod race, it just feels like it's wasted in this film.
Yeah.
Because otherwise this... like, you're right, the music, the action itself, it needed more stakes behind it.
Is it true, do you know? I don't know if it's just a rumour. Is it true that Liam Neeson won't talk about this movie in interviews?
I don't think it's true.
Oh, right, okay. I always heard he wouldn't talk about it. I quite liked...
I remember people used to say that about Ewan McGregor, but he's gone, no, I'm quite happy to talk about
it. Oh, no, I've never heard about Ewan. Okay. I've always heard it about Liam Neeson, and I heard it about Harrison Ford for a while, where, not because he was ashamed of the films, it's just he was fed up of...
being asked about them.
You know, something he did at the very beginning of his career, defining his career.
Sure.
In this fight, I both like and dislike. There's these random laser walls that keep coming down to, like, stop their progress.
Yeah.
And one, that's kind of stupid. Like, there's no reason for them to be there other than to artificially create drama.
Yeah, the laser walls don't make any sense as an item.
But I did quite like the bit where at one point Qui-Gon and Darth Maul get separated by them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was a good piece of character moment that Maul is pacing up and down and really sort of looks like he's like, come on, like he's a dog like a wild dog on a leash sort of thing.
Yeah.
And Qui-Gon Jinn just kneels down and meditates.
Yeah.
And I quite liked that.
Yeah.
That was a cool, like, character moment.
Showing a big difference between how the two
work.
Yeah. I thought that was brilliant.
Qui-Gon gets shanked
Yep.
We probably should have known he wasn't going to hang around for long, seeing as the prequels. We know from the original trilogy that Obi-Wan is the one who trains Anakin, not Qui-Gon.
The only thing that makes very little sense, though, I suppose it's only a question if you believe in the extended canon, is Qui-Gon gets taken out by getting stabbed through the guts with the lightsaber, right? Yeah. Fair enough. Okay, he falls to the floor and he's dead.
Yeah.
Darth Maul gets literally cut in two and falls down a mine shaft.
Yeah.
And yet he's back later on.
Doesn't he have robot legs?
He's got robot legs, but, like, I'm sorry, he's had the whole bottom half cut off.
Yeah,
and yet Qui-Gon gets stabbed once in the belly, and he goes, "Oh, I've got the belly badness," and dies.
Qui-Gon.
I don't care, he's got belly badness.
I don't even like this franchise, and I understand that they will kill us if you keep saying his name wrong. Qui-Gon.
But Qui.
Yeah, I will say this. As a kid, so I first saw... When did I first see Phantom Menace? Do you know what? I think Phantom Menace was the first Star Wars I ever saw.
No wonder you don't like it.
And I do remember being shocked that he got cut in half.
Yeah.
I remember, because at first you don't know, do you? Like, it starts with a close-up on his face as he's falling.
Yeah, well, you see his whole body as one, and then the bottom half just comes away.
Yeah. Yeah, that's it. And I do remember being a bit like, whoa. And doesn't his top half, like, hit something on the way down and proper, like, kerflunk off of it?
I don't think you see that.
I think you do. I'm sure there's, like, a metal beam or something.
Right.
And he proper just thunks on it. Yeah. And I remember being like, ooh. That was cool. And then the film's basically over. There's some weird romantic tension suggestion between Jake Lloyd and Natalie Portman, which is kind of gross, quite frankly, because he's a teeny tiny boy. Here's the really weird thing about this franchise. Actually, oh my god, that is really weird.
Go on.
So the next film comes out 3 or 4 years later, right?
Yes.
Jake Lloyd gets recast to Hayden Christensen.
Yep.
But Natalie Portman, whose character is older than him, isn't recast. That's still Natalie Portman.
I mean, yeah.
That's really weird, isn't it?
Why?
Well, because they clearly recast him to show him aging.
Yeah, but I think the reason is it's understandable enough to recast, like, a child into a teenage, like an older teenage man, like Hayden Christensen. Whereas if you change Natalie Portman for another actress, an older actress certainly, like you went, oh, well, let's make her Charlize Theron, for example, so that she's aged as well, it's much more obvious that it's not the same actor. Whereas, believably, quote-unquote, Jake Lloyd could have become Hayden Christensen because he's changed so much in that time frame.
Right.
Or the time frame that the movie is suggesting there's been.
Yeah.
Because the suggestion is it's been like 11 odd years, isn't it? Or something.
Really?
Something like that. 10, 11 years. I don't know.
Right.
We'll have to watch the second one to know exactly how much time it's meant to be, but yeah.
Yeah. So basically, I didn't like this movie.
No, I remember enjoying this movie when it came out, and then slowly realising that I had duped myself by the majesty of cinema.
You played yourself.
Well done, you've played yourself. I remember watching it several times on VHS and then on DVD, and thinking it was enjoyable enough as a brainless romp, but not really thinking much special about it other than Darth Maul. And watching it for this one, my opinion hasn't changed from my second opinion. It is a brainless romp. At least this time I can recognise where the structural problems are. It lacks a decent first act. It sort of just jumps into Act 2, and then Act 2 isn't very good. But Act 3, unfortunately, Act 3 pays off well a story that has been terrible for what should have been 2 acts, but was only really 1. So I think too late.
Honestly, cut Jar Jar Binks. You don't need him. No. You don't need the Gungans.
Nope.
It's all just unnecessary bloat.
Yep. There's too much bloat in it. And I think the problem was George Lucas, when he first started the Star Wars series, he was a nobody. Well, not nobody, but he was a relative nobody in comparison to who he is now.
He's fighting an uphill battle.
Yeah, so, and people would be there and go, look, you need to rewrite this, you need to redo this, you need to change this, George, this bit needs to be improved, George. When it got time to Phantom Menace, it was George fucking Lucas. Yeah. So people were like, no, you do what you need to, George. Oh, you know, even if he'd gone, oh, should I change? No, you do you, George. You know how to print the money, you keep going. No one questioned it.
Yeah.
And you could tell that this script needed some fresh eyes on it to go, George, this needs a serious rewrite.
Absolutely. And someone needed to tell this man to stay the fuck away from a green screen.
Yeah, because that was the irony, was the first Star Wars film was impressive because it was the first time that people had seen such a high element of puppetry and model work in cinema done that was still so fast and so speedy and looked really clean that you could believably consider it to be super advanced visually for its era. That's why Star Wars caught on, was the visual effects. And yet, when it got to this point, he obviously tried to play the same trick again, but obviously model work was now old hat, CGI was the new thing. So he decided he was going to do the same thing again, but do it all with CGI. Yeah. The difference was the model work in the original trilogy didn't impact or hamper the cinematography and the visual styling of the film. In fact, if anything, basically the visual effects scenes had to match in with what you'd already established in the prior scenes. With Phantom Menace, because it was adding so much CGI on every single shot, basically you had to damage your visuals.
Everything has to work in service of the visual effects, as opposed to the visual effects working in service of everything else.
Yes. See, you said it much better than me.
Which is the wrong way round, in our opinion.
Well, yeah, definitely in my opinion.
Fortunately, modern Hollywood seems to agree with George Lucas and is going the opposite direction.
But that's why I don't give a shit about any of the modern films.
Everything's fucking green screen now, isn't it? Or done on those LED screens they use for The Mandalorian.
See, the ones on The Mandalorian aren't so bad.
No.
I guess I at least prefer that because the camera has some freedom.
Yeah, and they can change in real time, can't they?
Which is
as
nice.
Opposed to just greenery.
Yeah. Plus, you tend not to lose the colour green when you're filming. Whereas with green screen, obviously, no matter what you do, you're having to key out green.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Cool. Well, I think that's all there is to say about
all I've got.
Star Wars Episode 1, The Phantom Menace. We will do the other Star Wars at some point, I think, just for the hell of it, I think.
Yeah.
I'm sure we've probably angered lots of people, so do feel free to leave comments and tell us why we're wrong and why Phantom Menace is a better film than we're giving it credit for. Or if you agree with us and think it's a rocky start, let us know that too.
I realised your quiz, you missed out a Star Wars film.
Don't you dare say the holiday special. That was on TV. It doesn't have a box office.
It wasn't even on TV, I don't think.
And hell, why not give us a comment and let us know what your favourite Star Wars film is? Let us know what your favourite one in the franchise is.
Yes. And why is it number 5?
Most of them's going to be 5, and it's the best one.
Yep.
Anyway, thank you so much for listening. It means a lot to us. Please like, share, subscribe, etc., etc., etc. And do join us again for another episode of Second Take Cinema. Also, if you want to check out our other movie talk show, we talk about video game movies over on VGMP, the video game movie podcast. You can find it on all big podcasting apps. That is myself and Rory again, with a slight more of a comedic tone this time, talking about movies based on video games. They're nearly all garbage, but believe it or not, some of them are quite good.
We've covered things like Tron, and we've also covered things like The Last Starfighter, which are probably similar in tone to Star Wars. Or at least they took a lot of their cues from Star Wars.
Yeah, they're bad.
Not necessarily.
They're bad.
Not necessarily.
They are bad.
You're meant to be advertising.
Nope, they're bad. No, the episodes are good, but the films are bad. So for more controversial hot takes,
I like Last Starfighter.
Go and watch or listen to VGMP. Till next time, may the Force be with you.